Hello everybody, Glenn Baggerly from Our City Radio, 180 cities around the world playing local musicians, but not only do we play musicians, and that's why this particular story I think you're going to find very interesting. With us today is Bob Stull, who in 1986 in Portland, Oregon opened up a guitar store by the name of Guitar Crazy. And not only do we just go to the musicians and speak with them, we go to local businesses in the local communities and we chat with people. And this gentleman here is the guy that provides some of the instruments to the local musicians. So a friend of mine recommended, said, Glenn, you got to reach out to Bob and call him and talk to him and go over to his store, Guitar Crazy, Southeast Division in Portland, Oregon, and chat with him. So I reached out to Bob and he said, you know, that'd be a heck of a good idea, but I don't have Guitar Crazy anymore. And what? Yeah, I had to close the store. And we're going to give you the story here on exactly what went on. But Bob, thanks for chatting with us here and being a part of Our City Radio.
My pleasure.
All right, when I approached you and I explained to you what Our City Radio was and what we're doing for local musicians worldwide, uploading their music for free, that concept kind of triggered you a little bit, didn't it? Just the idea of, wow, that's pretty cool.
It's very cool. Yeah, keeping things local is a good thing and hard to do these days.
It is local, and that's why I wanted to come over here and chat with you. 1986 until, when did you actually have to shutter the doors for Guitar Crazy and close it up?
Well, I turned it into an office for appointments approximately September of 2012.
So not too long ago.
No, not long ago.
So give us a timeline. You opened it up in 86, you've been very successful. There's obviously going to be some photos here of what the show used to look like. What did you see transpire over that 25, 26 years?
Well, there was no internet to speak of, and all the business was either local or the occasional, or not so much occasional. I would send a lot of the upper end vintage items out to Los Angeles or maybe back east to New York.
Right. So you opened the store. Were you successful right off the bat?
Yes.
That's what I remember you as. Everybody heard of Guitar Crazy. You rocked it.
I was shocked. I had come from working retail with one of the larger stores in the Portland area that sold mainly new items, and that's what they were really interested in, the occasional used. And there was a huge demand, in my opinion and in the opinion of others, for quality used and especially the vintage stuff, which back then wasn't priced astronomically as it is now, or has been as of late. And I decided that I needed to just branch out on my own. So at least a little spot, a tiny place. And started there thinking that I would be able to eke out a modest living and practice a little bit, which I hadn't done in years, and hang loose, so to speak. But from the first days, I was really busy and did a lot. And we used to buy a lot over the counter, which doesn't happen that much anymore. And it was vibrant, and it was not elitist. It was not really shiny deluxe, and it was fun.
But you had something that wasn't out there. You had something that people wanted, and you were in that era of rock and roll, as we all know, the 80s and early 90s, where it must have been a heck of a blast.
Yes.
And you'd have some big hitter stuff in here to visit your stores.
Yes. Sometimes it was too much of a blast, but that
I was there in those era.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and
then
all kinds of big names.
You can name a few. Give a few folks that have walked in your door and you had no idea they were coming in.
Billy Gibbons, ZZ Top. He's an avid guitar shop hound, though. Tom didn't come in, but Tom Petty's crew did several times. Waylon Jennings, Jackson Brown, Van Halen, Motley Crue, Metallica.
Yeah. So there's a lot of you folks out there that do recognize these names, and they've been right here. So, all right, when did it start just, wow, nobody's buying anymore, and they're all buying, and I know you made reference to earlier, Glenn, the big megalopolises are wiping out these little guys.
Yes. Well, and that's their motto.
That's their MO.
Yes, but 9/11 really changed the complexion of everything in the business I'm in.
I hadn't know how so.
Immediately, business went down 80% right after that.
And continued.
Yes. Yes.
I had no idea.
And I had a number of friends and associates and colleagues say, you know, just hang on, it'll come back, it'll come back. I kept it alive for 2 more years, spent a lot of my savings, and I had a staff back then, and I didn't want to just tell them to go away. So I toughed it out for 2 years, and then decided it was time to close up shop. I've done this before. In '03 I closed up, and attempted to do it online with a home office.
Right.
Home offices are horrible. It's as if you from your every waking moment is about work.
Yeah.
And so
it's hard to get away from it.
This present small location that I'm still in now as an office, I drove by and there was a for lease sign up, and this was my accountant's office in the early '80s. So I thought, great, there's an office. It's on Division. It's in Southeast Portland. It would be perfect. I just want a little office. I met with the landlord here, who was one of my last customers over on Hawthorne, and he made it clear that no, there's rooms in the back, and it's much larger than an office. And so I turned it into a small shop, thinking maybe it'll come rolling back. Felt like it would, and then another economic downturn in I believe it was '08, and from then on it's slid downhill.
What has been the biggest impact of these big super centers? What did the most negative impact? And really, I guess my question is, what is your chief complaint against those places right there?
The super center, well, bait and switch.
Go into that.
Nearly every day, I would hear somebody tell me that they went to big evil Empire Brand X to pick something up that they were told was there, and when they got there, it wasn't there. But they do have this. That sort of thing. The fact that the pricing is such that there's no profit margin to speak of in anything new, in most things new. And I know that for some people, profit is a dirty word, but without a profit, you cannot pay your bills. The overhead, even for a tiny commercial location, is nearly unbelievable.
Yeah. Plus, I would imagine the servicing. You know, what's the standing behind the product if you've got a problem with it? I don't see the big ones really having that much personal care.
For service, what's important is experience and expertise, and you can't gain experience and expertise in 4 months with some sort of training. And their turnover with staff is regular because they're not paid very well.
Right.
And the advertising that they do is oftentimes misleading. Not always, but sometimes. And that's with just simply new product primarily, which I didn't do that much of, but it all kind of blends together. And so what I would do from probably the late '90s is just match their price, match the internet price, the quote-unquote internet price, in the store. It's out there. So if an item retails for, a small item retails for $200, you can buy it online for $139.95. I'd put it out for $139.95. The expectation then was, I can get it for less than that, because for decades there's also been this cloud of necessity to negotiate wherever you go in the musical instrument store world. And a lot of dealers would pad their prices, which is, you know, I need to get $300 for this item, so I'll price it at $359.
Right.
And I will do that.
Right.
I think that's it misrepresents validity, honesty, and I think it makes people look ignorant. If you have a habit of overpricing things, somebody's going to know. It still happens to this day.
With here we are in 2000, almost 2014. So from the heyday of the Mecca, when Guitar Crazy was known by everybody in Portland, What's Bob Stull doing today?
Making an effort to find quality pre-owned instruments that I can resell at an affordable price. Dealing mostly on the web. I sell maybe 10% locally, and the rest of it goes elsewhere.
And your website, give us your website so these folks know. What is it?
GuitarCrazy.com.
GuitarCrazy.com. There he is, the one and only. Do you still play? Do you still jam a little? Yeah.
A little bit. I've got some physical problems with my left hand and coming to my right. It's called trigger thumb, and it can be painful at times. But I think I'll have surgery in the near future, and hopefully that will take care of it. But not that often. I've tried to put a couple of things together, and they crumbled mainly due to lack of commitment from others. And
the more I'm in this music biz, it's very interesting how many bands I've talked to and said, "Oh, dude, you don't know what we went through. Guy's not committed, coming in and doing this. You're just ready to get problems." I don't think people realize how tough it is behind the scenes to be a musician and to stick with it, stay with the same guys. You've been there, haven't you, as a young kid? I mean, I've seen your photos out there on social media as a young kid where you jammed at high schools. And
yes, the people that aren't involved in it see the end product, the performance, and the fun involved. And I've heard many times, boy, I wish I could do that for a living. And the behind the scenes work is 80% of it. And it can be tough, especially if you have other commitments. If you have to work a straight job and that sort of thing. So in the early days when we were kids, we would rehearse every other day, and that wasn't much for us back then, but we were living it.
You were. And, what year was this? 60?
No, we started playing. I started playing clubs when I was still in high school, early 70s.
Early 70s.
And by 73, we were making enough to make a living for young people at that time.
Right.
Pay the rent, pay the bills, buy the occasional extracurricular items and instruments, and it was good. It felt really good, and it was, the scene here was vibrant. Many nightclubs, many people going out to see all the local bands.
The music scene. What do you think of, honestly, the music scene out there right now and the quality of music compared to classic old rock and roll from the 50s and 60s? What do you think of today's music?
Today's music?
Today's music.
That's a huge question.
Today's rock and roll, what we classified as rock and roll.
Well, I can't say that I know all that much about it. If you're talking about what's up and coming in the young people, I'm on social media all the time. I do watch television, so I see what is commercial.
Right.
And that would be, who's big right now? Miley Cyrus.
Right. Well, I guess my question not so much broke down to the music itself. It's the musicianship. I mean, with all the computers and what they can do to these voices, and you don't need a drummer, you don't need this, push it into here. Has musicianship stymied a bit?
For pop music, yes. Because as you started to say, I mean, it's in some cases it's unnecessary. I have children that are half my age. They're adults now, and sometimes my daughter's interests are widely varied. My son's really into the hip hop thing and all of that, and some of it I hear is great, and some of it is unbelievably sophomoric and generated with machines and voice alteration, and a lot of it's a rehash. I heard one this morning that there was a melody line being whistled. I think it's an Irish jig against and that's part of a backing track for a guy talking about his cars and his rims and partying at the club and that sort of thing. And to each his own. I have no problem with that.
So for you, back in the day, who are your favorite bands? I mean, here we are, you know, and we've been around a few decades, you and I. Who are the bands that you could still listen to, and you know what? If you young kids listen to them now, you'd still like them.
Well, I'm coming from the perspective of a guitar player. Early influences, of course. Here we go: the Beatles, the Stones, Animals, the British Invasion era, and then with Clapton and Cream from Great Britain, and Hendrix, who had to go there to become a star. And you know, then we have Led Zeppelin in the early '70s and all of that. It was a great time.
So you did like a lot of the British Invasion yourself as a guitarist.
Yeah.
Who influenced you the most as a guitarist? I mean, who was the one you said, man, I like his stuff, I want to do that? Clapton?
No. Oh, yes, but not to the extreme. The first extreme, he's deceased. It was Terry Kath of Chicago.
Oh, absolutely.
And I've never read the quote, but Hendrix said he was his favorite guitar player.
And it's interesting you bring up Chicago. A couple of weeks before that accident happened with Terry Kath, they were in Portland. And you remember the old days at the Coliseum where you could just weasel yourself up to the front. There were no seats. And by the end of the show, I was from here, 5 feet away from that guy, watching him play. And I didn't realize how good the guy was.
Oh, yeah.
He could tear it up. He could tear it up.
Yeah, I might have been there. I saw them several times. First time was in a large, it looked like a barn. It was called Springer's Ballroom out toward Gresham. Probably 69.
Okay.
Maybe even as early as 68.
And you saw Chicago there?
Yeah. Sitting on, the stage was maybe 2.5 feet tall and sitting on an old wood floor about 8 feet away. And yeah, it was tremendous. There were a couple of local bands that opened for them. River, I remember them. They were great. I don't remember who else. But that was another part of the scene back then. When somebody would come that was big, a couple of local bands would open for them. And we used to have a lot of concerts in parks. Free.
Okay.
And I remember doing some of those. There were just thousands of people.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. All right, the guitar enthusiasts out there will probably shoot me if I don't ask you. Take me back to the very first electric guitar you ever owned. What was it? Thrill some of these people.
My mother bought a 50s Gibson ES-175 from an old schoolmate of hers who had one of the better known music stores in town, just a few blocks up the street on 39th and Division, Patert's Music House. Good old John Patert, missed the guy. And my brother and I shared it. And we didn't know what we were doing. We had this old no-name amp in front of us, and we'd sit down on the floor with that guitar. And it was a hollow body, so it would howl. Okay. And we would blame it on the amp, so we'd kick that thing. And that was the first good one. It was really too big for me because I was a skinny little runt. But that's what got us started.
Is there a guitar out there that you've, like myself as an athlete, oh man, there's a glove I always wanted, or there's a this I always wanted. Is there a guitar out there that you always wanted to, you would say, oh, this is the best one I ever played, or I wish I could have
well, I would like to have some of those back. I've had many that were my personal instruments that I needed to sell to keep the business alive.
Name them. What do you got?
Favorites. I had a Sunburst 57 Stratocaster that I just loved. 59 Les Paul Standard. I had a blonde 57 Stratocaster that I loved. But it came to a point where I needed to sacrifice those to keep the store alive, and it's almost as if it feels like that. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But if I could have afforded to keep them, I would have.
Yeah. But these are big names. There's going to be a lot of guys hearing this going,
but I couldn't afford that. I couldn't afford to hang on to them. I do have a few really nice guitars right now, but they're not $250,000 guitars.
You ever played a $250,000 guitar?
Sure.
We'll close it here, but before I go, there's a couple more questions. Do you miss the heyday of having Guitar Crazy here and with the rush
Sure.
of it?
Sure, you bet.
What's the thing you missed the most? Just the camaraderie? What was the thing you missed the most? The excitement?
All of the above. The excitement of being able to find great instruments and put them in the hands of people that appreciated them. And along with that, being able to eke out a living. I didn't get into this business to get rich. I did it because I did it out of love. As corny as that sounds,
You had the passion.
it's
though.
true.
It was a passionate thing for you.
I still do at times. Sometimes that wanes because of the state of affairs, oftentimes currently.
Right.
But I still do. When I look around and think about what else can I do, well, to quote an old friend of mine, I'm not. How did he put it? I'm not qualified to do anything else, sir. But I hope to keep it alive in some way for a long time, because there is a place for quality, pre-owned, and vintage instruments, because they save people money, and it's a far better investment. You know, you buy a new guitar and you leave the place, it's like driving the new car off the lot. It's depreciated before you get out to your car,
And they know it.
or onto your bike. And if you buy a quality used item, it doesn't depreciate. For a long time, it would appreciate.
Right.
Yeah.
Folks, Our City Radio, we want to support local businesses and local stores, local restaurants, local venues like Bob Stull here, and hopefully you've enjoyed this little interview by one of the masters from Oregon, certainly, and thank you so
You're
much
welcome.
for giving us the opportunity.
Thanks for coming by. I appreciate it.
Anything we can do to tag your lines and bring some people your business here. So one last time, it's guitarcrazy.com, am I right?
GuitarCrazy.com.
Our City Radio, your city, your talent, our radio. This is Glenn Baggerly, and thanks for taking the time to watch this. Hope you enjoyed it.